So I'm just curious to know, before we get into all the heady stuff, how many of us here are theater of the oppressed practitioners? If you can just kind of move your body or drop an emoji so I know that we have folks who are familiar with this work in the room. Okay. And maybe move your body extra if you're like, this is my life. I know this. This is like what I've been doing for my entire life. And I've been okay. So move your body if you have witnessed a theater of the oppressed performance or game in action. If you have witnessed it, if you've been a spect actor to a TO game. Okay. So move. Okay. And as you're moving, I want you to think about what are some of the words that come into your mind when you think about that theater of the oppressed performance that you witnessed or acted in. What were some thoughts, feelings, questions, ideas, words that come into mind when you go back to that moment of witnessing or acting in a TO game or performance? And just like drop a few of those in the chat. It's going to help us contextualize our work together. So just drop a few words in the chat. What does it mean for you to be part of a TO space, to witness TO? Also acknowledging that all of us come from very different spaces and very different contexts. So it's also good to just kind of have some library of words and languages to go to. Okay. Wonderful to connect in a real way. Yeah. Fun, community power, urgency. Agency, transformation, intention, liberation. Yeah. Energy, joy. Okay. Okay. So we're going to lift some of these words in our discussion today. Yeah. So just for context and for people who are watching the video who might not know what TO or Theatre of the Oppressed is, Augusto Boal, who was the creator of this work, developed this methodology in the 60s and 70s. And he was inspired particularly with his work with Brazilian farm workers. He performed a play with his actors about essential land rights. And Boal and his troupe were invited to join the farmers in their real life revolt against their landowners. The actors refused because they said, we are actors and you are farmers, so we'll just perform for you. And in that moment, there was such outrage amongst the farmers because it revealed the gap between the actors' portrayal and the lived struggle of the farmers. So the essential question of TO and like how it came up was because Boal began to ask, how can artists inspire liberation if they don't take the same risks as their community? So how do you inspire liberation in your own community if you are unwilling to take the same risks as your community? This question, essential question, has shaped Theatre of the Oppressed, or TO, as a methodology where those impacted by the problems define those problems and craft contextually relevant actions for change. Today, Theatre of the Oppressed is practiced in over 70 countries by educators, activists, therapists, social workers, and it's adapted to diverse settings. But because of this adaptation, it can often risk becoming a quick fix workshop, a quick fix intervention. And so today we're going to return to its original intention of building, sustaining, and organizing healthy communities. Our panel today brings three scholars, artists, and activists who are deeply embedded across social movements fueled by TO in India and in the US. They'll begin by introducing their TO praxis, and then we're going to get into the discussion. Okay, I will share speaker bios. And without further ado, I'd love to invite Liz to open your state to open with just about your work and how TO like plays a role in the work that you do.
Thank you, Akila. Good morning, because it's 6:30 here in New York. Actually, Akila and I are very close to one another right now. So my current role, I'm the Director of Training and Pedagogy at Theater of the Oppressed NYC, also known as TO NYC. So speaking of quick fix workshops, that is something that sometimes I am asked to design. So we have an office in Midtown Manhattan, but partner with organizations all around New York to do our core work, which is forum theater. And so in a given year, we try to do 1 to 2 cycles with each partner organization where we work with their community for about 10 to 12 weeks to build a play. These organizations are typically other nonprofits like ours that are specifically providing critical services to the most marginalized New Yorkers. So we have worked in homeless shelters, drop-in spaces for runaway youth, many of whom are part of the queer community. We also work with folks who have been previously incarcerated, immigrant communities, and much more. People are often surprised that we don't have like just one demographic that we serve. But I think it's really important that the tools and practice of TO remain widespread. And so for that reason, we also do private workshops and public trainings. For all sorts of people around the world. I started doing this work in 2015 as a part-time facilitator. I was working with a youth shelter called Covenant House, as well as Housing Works, which is an organization here that supports adults living at the intersection of HIV/AIDS and homelessness. And then most recently, I was back facilitating at Housing Works after some time away, as well as Breaking Ground, which is a supportive housing program. So most of my training has been on the ground, working with our troops and residencies, learning through experience what is needed to make this work in our cultural context. That said, I've also had the opportunity to engage with other TO practitioners, for instance, at Jana Sanskriti at their biannual festival. I've also worked with other political theater experts like the folks from Janam in New Delhi. And we've also tried to bring in other disciplines at TO NYC. So we've taken trainings in trauma-informed care. We've taken trainings in restorative justice. And so all of those things have helped us to kind of build out our pedagogy, which is codified in our 200-page publication, the Wildcard Workbook. I think at some point we'll be dropping links in the chat, so you can probably find it through there. And so the funding we receive, just to sort of explain maybe larger about how our organization works, I know we're going to talk a bit about that. So we receive funding from foundations and the government, which goes towards bringing these 10-week programs to our partners, where we'll spend the first few weeks facilitating games and exercises meant to build trust and practice sharing power, and starting the process of demechanization. And for those of you who are not TO nerds, demechanization is sort of our fancy word for unlearning. That's our kind of critical TO term. And typically the next step is us holding space for each individual to share their stories from their personal life that follows the forum theater structure. And again, for those who aren't familiar with forum theater, that's really about a time when an individual tried to get something they needed and something they had a right to, but were denied by a gatekeeper because of who they were, who the oppressor thought they were. And those plays end in failure, right? So that the audience can see the problem. So through that process, we find the collective story, we fictionalize the details, we combine settings and characters and build a play through that. At TO NYC, our actors receive a stipend for their work, which again, in our cultural context is a little unique because a lot of folks doing similar work, the process of the program is considered a service. But we're really passionate about making sure that our actors feel like their work is just as valuable as any other artistic professional. So we're providing them with stipends, as well as Metro cards, which is just kind of transit support to help them get to their rehearsals and home. We provide food and collaborate with the participants on curating the audience that they want to see their play and dialogue with around practical solutions. Sometimes that kind of looks more like a cathartic healing experience with other community members facing similar issues. That has also looked like legislative theater, where we collaborate with city council members to brainstorm policy change. A few years ago, we started a rapid response troupe, which is made up of alumni actors from our different troops and residencies, which specializes in bringing a kind of shorter creative offerings, sometimes forum theater, sometimes other stuff, to rallies and protests. So it's very multifaceted work. And we'll talk a little bit later, but we've also used this work to kind of help brainstorm our own internal problems as an organization. So my first administrative role was actually born out of trying to solutionify or intervene against issues we were having, retaining actors who perhaps lost touch with the partner organization, but were still in crisis. So yes, in that way, theater of the oppressed and pedagogy of the oppressed, which it was born out of, exists for me and my colleagues, like not just as a technique, but more of a way of living and a way of governing. And so maybe I'll pause there because I know we'll talk more about those themes, but that's me and TO NYC.
Thank you. Thanks, Liz. And it's also really interesting to know how TO NYC positions itself as a co-conspirator with communities. So, from across, individuals who are experiencing homelessness to individuals who are at the intersection of HIV and homelessness, you guys partner, essentially position yourselves as partners. And that's a question I'll come to later, is when there's a little bit of discrepancy with your own lived experience and the experiences of the people you are serving. At the same time, you're giving people a stipend for the work that they're doing, which is about their own lives. How do you ethically and morally grapple with those questions? So thank you, Liz. And I'm going to now invite Maulikraj, who is sitting in Chicago at 5:45 in the morning.
Yeah, very good morning to all of you. Yeah, thank you so much, Akhila, for like making this community virtually possible for all of us. We are in different time zone, but at the same time, we are in a very similar kind of crisis. And we are feeling that constant pressure, violence, oppression in many different ways. So I think this is the best way to like be together and talk about TO practice. I think that's the best thing to do. So yeah, um, so my theater practice is our theater group, Whistleblower Theater Group in Gujarat, situated in Ahmedabad. But like the folks from the participants are coming from a different like rural part of the Ahmedabad, at the same time like some urban part of the Ahmedabad as well. And it started with college campus theater group and we were like practicing and doing like inter-college theater competitions, and from there like we emerge as whistleblower theater, like political theater group. And like we identify ourselves as anti-caste theater group, and that is the like major intervention we are offering in the theater praxis and also in the scholarship. So yeah, I just wanted to like start with how this whole theater group formed, and what were the challenges like happen because of like it is like the theater of the oppressed, like philosophy engaged theater group. And like so the basic like problem I was facing as a coming from a Dalit community. Like a Dalit is a like ex untouchable community from India, and it was very difficult for me to engage in the theater. So I was like I started as an actor and also like was doing backstage and like providing different kind of labor to the Gujarati commercial theater before. And I realized that the language of this Gujarati theater is not the language I speak it at my home, and what my mother speak. And like and this is like a very similar experience I found also in the theater group. We were like doing different kind of plays for like experimental or social political kind of plays. But I realized that at a point that when I wanted to do like theater of the oppressed training, I wanted to learn what is like when I introduce to Forum Theatre and Augusto Boal. Like when I heard this name for the first time in the like chai tapri from Jayesh Solanki's mouth, and Jayesh was very like key theater practitioner, like theater of the oppressed practitioner at that time in Gujarat, and he said that like rehearsals for revolution, and I just like fascinated, what is this? And then I like talked to him about like what is this, and then he came with this idea of like this is so important to pursue like theater of the oppressed, and this is forum theater, and you can search about Augusto Boal, and I started learning about Augusto Boal, and then I also like searched that there are a lot of different kind of theater practitioners like doing theater of the oppressed in India, and I reached out of like I try to like connect with and also see like what kind of like theater of the oppressed like I can learn, and I also can offer to like my theater people. But it's very interesting to see like how, and at that time I also like search theater of the oppressed and then realize that how theater of the oppressed itself is like became a commodity, and the commercialization of TO, or the NGOization of TO, and then it became like the academification of TO. So it's very like the whole like the purpose of Augusto Boal and like Freire's work, and as you like Akhila mentioned in the beginning about this the Augusto Boal's story. So I thought like how this like farmers like Brazilian farmers showcase the mirror to Augusto Boal at one point. I think like this is the time then we also want to like showcase the mirror to the TO practitioners in India in a way, because the whole caste in this whole TO practitioner caste issue, or the mechanism of like the society, which is like very rooted to the caste system, is missing in the TO of India. So I now also see like I presented a paper, and Akhila, you were there, and I call this whole like Indian theater practice as like Savarna led or upper caste led theater of the oppressed. So the oppressors are leading the theater of the oppressed, and using the Dalit or Adivasi or different kind of marginalized communities, or lower caste communities as subjects or as a commodity. So I think this is the major like problem like I saw, or the violence I see in TO, and also not only just TO but also the political theater in India, or they say like we need revolution. So this idea of revolution is also like so fishy. They are like talking about revolution in a way that the revolution or the idea of oppression is also defined by the oppressors, and it is like imposed on the oppressed. So this like taking photos and like getting grants of in the name of TO, in the name of that like oppressed caste bodies are the like I think the key characteristics I see as like practitioner and scholar. So this whole idea, like I shifted from praxis to the scholarship and joined Northwestern, pursuing PhD just because of that. Because when I was like talking about the same ideas, no one was listening, because they were like, "Who are you?" Because of the coming from that community at the same time doing theater, which is, and when you say you are doing like college-based theater, or a very like experimental theater, you like and they see you as like amateur theater practitioner. So this whole amateurity doesn't allow me to like go like intervene and like very prominently. So I think this is the like best way I wanted to like conclude that this is the whole theater of the practice, theater of the oppressed practice needs to rethink with the caste base, or like when like nowadays, like I also see like trauma informed theater of the oppressed also came into market. But I think, and I'm definitely sure that if caste is also like at one point like would be like commoditized by like the different kind of political theater practitioners. So I think not only just to like use the cast or just to do like one or two TO on cast. See, we also did TO, or we ticked that box of doing cast work. But I think we need to like come up with more interesting or like different techniques, which is like which allow like a caste oppressed people to hold the not only like being a subject or not only like performing as joker, but also decide what kind of TO they want to perform. Or there is no need any upper caste leader to decide. Or so there is like, and like Liz also mentioned about the gatekeepers. So like here the practitioners are the gatekeepers, and there is no space for like forming like TO practice, because the TO practice itself become like so elite practice in a way. So this form, which is like Augusto Boal and Paulo Freire thought like it is like very like democratic and coming from the community, it changed. And so yeah, the whole like whistleblower theater group is like attempting like the plays we are doing. It is like not only a forum theater, but we also do like a very like what is yeah, proscenium plays or street plays. But our thought process behind like making that play, we use TO techniques. And so it is, I think this is the way we are right now looking at TO, and like trying to develop a new kind of anti-caste TO practice in a way. So yeah, thank you.
Maulikraj, I think you raised some very essential questions that I think all of us grapple with internally, but I'm just going to name it. What does theater of the oppressed mean when the parameters of oppression is being defined by those who are the oppressors? And I think and a big part of this discussion is like, while we are so used to talking about TO with communities, what does it mean to turn the mirror, like you said, look at ourselves a little bit and see who is holding power even within people who are practicing this work? Because a big reason why we were also drawn to this work is because it gives us a sense of power, you know. So and I also really like your framing of the languaging of TO. How can TO almost be languaged into an NGOization or violence also, which is something I don't think we'd also talk a lot about, that TO as a language can also be violent, not only to the communities, but to the practitioners who are practicing this work. So on that note, I'm also going to invite Vandana, because I know Vandana personally has, sacrificed a lot to make sure that there is like that boundary of TO as self and TO with community is blurred a little bit. So go ahead, Vandana.
Thank you, Akhila. I'm extremely excited to be here because, and my internet is a bit unstable, so I apologize in advance. I'm extremely happy to be here just to listen to, I mean, Liz and Maulikraj talk about their work, and then Akhila, you adding a beautiful, nuanced question to it, or a beautiful, nuanced thought to it. So I was just happy that we're here and we're doing this amazing, soulful work. So just gratitude for that. um, so yeah, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. I'm Vandana. I'm an artist, facilitator, and the founder of Rankarwa. Rankarwa uses arts-based experiential learning to address social issues and create inclusive spaces for marginalized communities in India. Currently, we are based in Champawat, which is near the India-Nepal border of Uttarakhand, the Kumaon region of Uttarakhand. So that's where Champawat is. That's where I live. And my journey with theater the oppressed, I think a work in some bhavna. And that got into my head कि यार ये तो अच्छा, like this is a good um opportunity to really mix two of my passions, which is like working with communities and arts. So when I got to know about TO, I just got into it. Then I worked with an organization called Navgurukul, and that offers residential coding education to underserved youth in India. So through methods of forum theater, image theater, I worked with almost 100 students from uh, different communities in India, and we explored topics of toxic masculinity, gender equity, and these workshops became the powerful space for these students to really reflect on their struggles. And I really thought that, this is exactly what I want to do. And this was a lot because I was in Bangalore and I would constantly be calling her up to.
Vandana, oh, sorry, 1 second. Vandana, maybe if you put your
Are
video
you
off,
able to listen to me?
yeah, I think maybe if you put your video off, we
Yeah,
can hear you. I know
yeah,
the online space.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Could you guys hear me? Can you remind me what was the last thing you heard?
Talk about how you were in Bangalore and how you reached out to Radha in Bangalore. That's what I
Oh
remember.
yeah. Yeah, so I think, and then I did a lot of experimentation. I went on a journey of like volunteering with different organizations of India, really trying to understand what is TO and how can it be used. And I think that was the transformative year because that's how Rankarma was born. So in 2021, my work, like it took a deeper turn when I moved to Champavat. Um, so like the Boal's pedagogy said that you when you begin your work, when I began my work with working with the community, except for me, all my team members are from Champavat. That really makes sure that the work remains rooted and led by the local community. So thank you, Akhila, for mentioning in the very beginning of this call, Boal's idea to, of taking the same risks that the community take. So thank you, because that is exactly how, my journey of Rankarwa started. So there are multiple challenges in in Champavat. Like, of course, regressive gender norms, extremely strict and violent gender expectations, gender inequality, and then unemployment, migration, a lot of villages being ghost villages because everybody is migrating out. And and also the terrain is difficult. It's a mountainous terrain, so landslides, um and a lot of calamities are, it's a very vulnerable um region. So I saw a lot of problems, and the problem was that nobody was really trying to get into it, like get hands on with it, because of multiple reasons, because of, extreme lack of resources, because of multidimensional poverty. People just try to struggle and have 3 meals in a day, so I understand that there might be multiple reasons, but I think what I tried to do in the beginning when I came here, I didn't know anybody. I just bought a house for myself. I just had one friend, and I slowly started creating space through arts in this community. So initially, just arts, learn English with activities, learn English with theater, something like that. And then the very tiny ones started coming just to learn English, A, B, C, D, and something like that. And then the elder one came, I mean, the elder one, they also insisted that we want to learn English. And then the youth started coming, and then we started doing mehfils. Mehfils is like just gathering of local artists, local people. And, that's how it started. And then slowly that one room where I used to teach English has now become a full-fledged learning center in a children's library. So, I mean, that's it. And I have a team of 20, 30 people right now, with like 20 of them being our fellows. Uh, it's it, it's extremely interesting that I mean, similar to what Liz mentioned about providing stipends, we also ensure that all our young team members receive a salary for their work. And our team is selected based upon their motivation and intention rather than educational qualification and their professional background. And a significant number of our team members are women who were once housewives and wanted to do something meaningful for themselves. And that's how they joined us. So this work has really helped them find financial independence and a sense of ownership, and it has empowered them in a way to contribute to their own community back in new ways. So, yeah, I mean, now we are 20 local practitioners, all of them from Champawat. And we continue to use theater to address different issues like gender inequality, emotional well-being. We have designed a socio-emotional learning curriculum for the government schools, and we are evaluating it with a bunch of researchers. We are doing an RCT to understand how. And this is such an interesting project of mine that I'm extremely excited about, because this will ensure that in some way, this will prove the power of our pedagogy, how theater and arts and TO can make these extremely underserved adolescents emotionally available, like better citizens in the future, better parents in the future, better sisters, and better um I don't know, family members in the future. So why not invest in them? So I think, honestly, my experience is very, very different from Maulikraj, because when I entered, I did not see any practitioners in India, and I just went straight on to my work. So I was kind of like a clean slate. So I just picked up from Boal's real ideas, and I started implementing them, because you know we don't have institutes who train you to be theater of the oppressed practitioner. We don't have communities that strong, that reach to the villages. There's nothing like that in Bihar, where my father's village is. There's nothing in places I grew up in. Like, why did I have to move to a metro city to get that opportunity? Why did I have to learn English to be able to get information about theater of the oppressed? I did not know English very well when I started my journey. I had to learn English. So I was like, okay, I went through that struggle. Nobody else will. So I will do whatever I can in my capacity to change this scenario um, in our country, and especially in the villages. I am extremely obsessed with working in the rural areas. I love villages. Absolutely love villages. So yeah, that's my work, and that's the basic idea of it. I can share Rankarma's links, and you
Yeah.
guys can all see and go check the work. But I wanted to talk more about my relationship with theater of the oppressed, because praxis.
Thank you. Thanks, Vandana. I'm also enjoying seeing Maulikraj and Liz's expressions while each of us are speaking. And Vandana, I have shared Rankarva's link online, and I think your work also speaks to a very organic, like the whole reason why Paulo Freire said that like TO is for people who are oppressed to find it. It's to liberate yourselves. No one else is going to come liberate you. So this idea of why did you have to move to a different city? Why did you have to learn English? Similar to what Maulikraj said, why did I have to spend all of, almost academify myself in order to practice this work that was supposed to be mine from day one, right? And I wonder if there's something about that struggle that's also part of the praxis, that and then how can we reduce that struggle, which is what, Vandana, you're doing, is very organically building momentum amongst the community members that you're working. So while we've spoken a lot about the work that you're doing with your communities, I want us all to kind of turn the mirror a little bit inwards and really grapple with this question about how are these philosophies of TO, which you all are practicing with your communities and expertly in your spaces, how is it informing your own organizational processes and your own leadership? Because now you guys are leading these movements, leading these spaces, and power and egos can feel very heightened when you see your face in, as like, even for this webinar, our faces were on this webinar. We are the face for the communities that we're representing. So how do you grapple with those internal contradictions as theater of the oppressed practitioners who've been doing this work for so long? And that's open to all of you, any of you who want to go for it.
Yeah, I can jump in, maybe just to like riff off of what you even said about the flyer, right, with our faces, because I think in this present moment, like I am having a bit of cynicism around that. Because I think as much as people want to learn about sharing power, and as much as people want to learn about democratic processes, just thinking about the way social media works right now, right? Like we are in an influencer era. And so people are looking for saviors. They're looking for gurus. They're looking for like an expert here and an expert there. And like that's the way that you draw people to your work. And so I think like I'm constantly looking for, yeah, like how can I slap my headshot on something, but then kind of subvert it, right? How can I ask questions like of the group and leave people understanding that the expertise was actually like in the room the whole time, right? Like I'm really just holding space for others to be thinking about their own expertise, about their lived experience. That said, like just to kind of to zoom out, regardless of our flyer, you can't have a methodology that is all about collective storytelling and all about collective decision making in the acting troupe, and then have everything in the organization be top-down hierarchical, right? For the larger organizational decisions. And I think it's really hard. And I'll speak for our New York context, right? To be a nonprofit and be looking at our peers, or yeah, a lot of our peer organizations that are doing similar, like what we call teaching artist work, like educational artist work, that are kind of operating in that way when we're actually coming in with a completely different methodology, a completely different praxis. And granted, there is a way that there's a universe where like maybe our actors wouldn't know the difference, because a lot of the time when they come into context with us or into contact with us, it's only via that one troupe. And so they don't necessarily know that like we're a larger organization that have this kind of like widespread reach, small team, widespread reach, right? And so I think we've always tried to figure out ways to be more democratic. But what we realized recently is that needed to be codified, because I think eventually leadership is going to change. Like right now, a lot of our folks that are in the kind of administrative roles are also facilitators, are also practitioners. And so it kind of lives within us, but that could change, right? There could be people that come in with the expertise around fundraising or operations or whatever that maybe aren't as deeply embedded in this work. And so we've been transitioning to a worker self-directed nonprofit, which is basically as close to a worker co-op as a nonprofit can get. That means we have folks like from our full-time admin staff to our part-time facilitators, And then eventually even our participant actors that will opt into membership, which means that they have decided that they want to be a part of decision making. They want to be accountable for that with us. And again, that doesn't mean that folks with that expertise and fundraising and operations aren't still needed, but that does mean we have to kind of slow down and take time to involve more people in say it's making a decision about like, what languages do our materials need to be translated into in order to be more accessible, right? Or, we have this big pot of funding. How are we going to distribute that? Or we just lost funding. Which programs are going to get cut? And so we're already working through those things. And it's very hard because I think like everybody being accountable is great when when it feels empowering. And then everybody being accountable feels awful when you have to make those hard decisions about, okay, we have 5 different acting troupes. The grant didn't come in. How do we turn 5 acting troupes into 3? Those are not easy conversations. But all of that, I think, like the reason why we're doing it this way is because we are trying to apply that kind of TO democratic process to everything we do right now. So that's my answer to that question. Yeah, Maulikraj and Vandana, feel free to riff.
Yeah, Maulik, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, thank you for asking this question, Akhila. So yeah, it is like very like I whistleblowers theater's whole journey like is also like parallel of my own journey because I was the the seed of the whistleblower, and that's why like I'm the face of the whistleblower. But I uh, like what happened after this whole like theater practice, as I earlier like I also said that nobody was like writing on whistleblower, and it was just we are just doing theater. And also it was it was like part of the college campus, and we were getting like awards in different theater competitions. At the same time, we were also like practicing like performing in the community and organizing different kind of shows which is um, not in the spaces which is like considered as theater performance spaces. And like this gap is also like I see as like protected ignorance, where people were like appreciating on Facebook, but nobody was like giving like funding or like writing about us on very like serious way or like scholarship. It like that the shift of the whole like me being like practitioner to scholar. And after like coming here, that was like very crucial time where like our theater company was like struggling because we were not we are not like non-profit organization or not registered anywhere. We are just like theater group. So it's a and it was like very intentional because the whole this trap of like project or making project or getting funds. And also it is like very um, if you do that, that is also like very like surveillance of government are also key to you. And there are a lot of NGOs who are like working on caste, and anti-caste NGOs also like getting banned or like defunded, and there are a lot of issues happen. So we decided to like just navigate ourselves as theater group, and it's like a voluntary kind of theater group. And like all the plays happen like during that whole 10 years were like written and directed by me. So it was like very I was the only face. And I think like I and after coming here also like I write in my bio that I'm a Dalit artist activist. And to say out loud as I am Dalit, that is like the face of whistleblower theater group, as like we are like only anti-caste theater company led by Dalit in India. It is very like a argument or intervention or our like branding in a way that we are doing this, because it is also like intervention and also like exposing in a way that how other theater groups are led by upper caste people. And after like, and also if I see myself as like what we did and how like where we are right now, after coming here our group was little bit in distrust that what I was still like doing theater, and some people also felt that like I just left, I just trained them and they were doing practice for 10 years, and suddenly I decided to move to US. And so that was also there, but like organically the second leadership came out, and now like whistleblower is like still practicing their theater in Gujarat, in Ahmedabad, and led by Mehul Maitra, and he is also like coming from Dalit community. So like I think this is the like balance we found organically. And I like when we met last time also, like I was talking about the gender and how um, it is very difficult to like find Dalit women actors and leaders in theater, and all the like most of the theater like Gujarati theater practitioners, so like performers, women performers are coming from upper caste community, specifically like Brahmin community. So it is like this is also like challenge for us to like bringing more Dalit or Adivasi women like in the company, and like and I just want to like give that space to them, and like just like to do more theater in different ways. But like yeah, this is the challenge we are facing right now in terms of and like the political economy of whistleblower also like shifted, because we were not, it was like very earlier it was like part of the college, so we were just doing theater and meeting in college campus, and everyone was just like coming in the name of doing college, in the name of doing academics undergrad, we are doing theater. But after a point, like people started getting, and all of the people are coming from the different like most of the people are coming from the humble economic community. They got like from parents like, what are you doing, you are doing just theater and not earning anything. So I think right now we are also like facing, and a lot of people left because of that, because they have to earn money and giving like some kind of like paying all kind of bills. And so I think uh, right now what are we doing, like I recently got like one grant to do like anti-caste theater workshops in US, and the we are like giving like some that like that's that money to the people who are part of whistleblower, and we're also like trying to buying like some kind of space or something like for rehearsal so we can meet, because all we were doing like after getting like banned at a point from the college, we have like started doing rehearsal on garden or riverfront in Ahmedabad, and it was like a public space and it doesn't allow you to like talk about caste in performance very like fluently. So yeah, these are the challenges right now we are facing in the group. Yeah.
I think Maulikraj, you mentioned this battle between trying to be informal and keeping yourselves as a theater group so you can do the more like politically activated work, but at the same time requiring yourselves to be formalized in some way to also be taken seriously for other versions of whistleblower to form. So you're in this like interesting contradiction, which is also what Theo lives in, is all about living in that contradiction of two opposite things happening at the same time. Is how do you remain covert and kind of subverted and below the radar, and at the same time academify yourselves and codify, like what Liz says, codify the work that you're doing, and so ingenious to use a grant that you get from the US and use it to buy a space in Gujarat. And those are the kind of trickster mindsets that I feel like a lot of TO practitioners find themselves playing, where you are having to, because we cannot break the system. So how do you work with the system to then eventually break parts of it for your own work? So really wanted to lift that, and then Liz, and then Vandana, and then we're going to open it up to the audience. So go ahead, Liz. Offer.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, and that tension is very presently in play, like in the US right now, where, you know, our government just passed a bill that says that, like, they can call a nonprofit a terrorist organization and remove their 501c3 status, like, basically, like, without real cause, right? If they determine that something you have said is terrorism, they can remove all of this work that we've done to kind of make our work sustainable is very much at risk right now. And so we constantly have to be thinking of new ways to be these tricksters. So I just wanted to add that in before we go to Vandana.
Yeah. Yeah, no, agreed. The political economy determines our trickster energy. Maulikraj, go for it.
It's very, yeah, Liz, what you said, it's very similar to India. It's like unsaid and like people getting started like call out as anti-national or like terrorist in a way. So it's there only. And I think it's now it's a whole world issue.
Vandana, do you want to kind of conclude our discussion format section, and then we'll open it up to audiences?
Oh God, such a big opportunity and a responsibility. um, yeah, what were we talking about?
I'll repeat the question. Is how is TO not just something that you're doing with your communities, but how are the philosophies of TO reflected in your own leadership? And how do you kind of grapple with that ego high that sometimes comes with being the face of Rankarva?
Interesting. I think it's that brutal honesty that you have with yourself. And that is exactly what your praxis gives you. It's that I would call it radical candor. So you have that radical candor with yourself, where um like like good activists and practitioners. So like good practitioners and actors and spectators, we keep identifying like problem with the scene, we keep identifying problem with the world, we keep identifying problem with a person, and that's exactly how we keep identifying the problems within us. You know, so I think this praxis would you I think we talk about the four eyes. So on all those four eye levels, the ideology, the institution, the internal and interpersonal, right? All four of them. So you are radically honest and radically mm, how would you call it, radically a spectator in all four sense. So I think that's it. That's you just keep working on yourself. So I think you identify a problem with your team, you work on it. You identify a problem in the system, you work on it. So you identify a problem in yourself and you work on it. So I think that's exactly what my praxis has given me, that keep identifying problems and um keep your roots like the tree of theater of the oppressed, right? Keep your roots really grounded and really strong with your values, with your identities, and then slowly use TO as a pedagogy to really grow into a tree and, you know, have multiple branches and support many, many lives. So I think that's exactly, that tree of TO is exactly what it has given me. It made me a tree.
Hearing you, Vandana, I'm reminded of a phrase that Liz spoke about earlier when we were chatting, is that doing TO, I feel spiritually spoiled, because TO is so aligned, deep, it's so rooted in our bodies, that it just flows naturally when you're trying to make even organizational decisions. It's the way that you look at the world, and it's a very it's a very unconscious sometimes choice that comes in. And talking about trees and trees of TO, we're going to open it up to all the various branches of people we have here. And we're just going to begin with Melissa's question. And this question is to any of you who would like to answer. So Melissa says, "Thank you for the amazing presentation. Please, could I ask advice about applications of TO with a group of climate students? They are not from a marginalized community, but they are internationals. I don't have a lot of experience applying TO. I would like to inspire them to see and live the experience with this tool and take it seriously for their future careers and practices." So, does anybody have any comments to that question? And also, I'll open it up to anybody in the audience also, let's open it up to all the spectators. We have about 10 minutes to grapple with this. Climate change and TO.
Uh,
Yeah, Ravi, go ahead.
I come in a little bit. I think it's just also taking forward from what Maulikraj also spoke about, the idea of about anti-caste work, right? So if you actually, so the fact is, if you can combine, if you combine climate work with other identities, that especially the identities of people, climate is not just about the sky, right? It's about people and engagement with the climate. And I think that's where also we can actually look at the idea of working on climate, but from the idea of the human engagement of working with each other, working on identities, and how the identities also have a way of shaping not just the climate, also the climate of what it means to take action, right? In the times of the environment, it's also to take action. So I think I'm just looking at that as a way of bringing in TO, specifically TO, as a way of exploring the idea of what are the ways that we also understand climate, and not just directly look at climate as one model or one idea of climate. So I think just to really, let's say, break the idea of the climate and really see where the group wants to explore and what the group wants to explore from the idea of the climate. And then, so I'm not going into the specifics of the workshop itself, because that's not what but just the idea of what it means, the idea of climate and people. So I would say focusing on climate and people is something that also interests me, because I've been doing some work on that also, on the idea of what, for example, I've been doing some work on waste management and the idea of what waste actually means. So creating it from that perspective also, like really understanding that, and not have one general notion of the idea of what climate means.
Looking at climate change through the intersectional lens. Yeah. Vandana, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, thank you. I really wanted to jump in. I know Maulik and Liz, both of them. I think Liz had something to say, but I just jumped in, not because I'm better, but because democracy. Um, I have a voice. I want to speak. So I think a very interesting question, Melissa, and interestingly, how it goes back to the question that you asked, Akhila, ki how does it reflect on my own praxis and pedagogy of leadership and organizational functioning? So it goes back to that, and I will answer the same thing. So I think I would just like to invite everybody who's working on different themes right now to just like think about what I'm going to say, is to go back to the texts, and I have a different analogy for that. How the mythological scriptures that we have, Gita, Ramayana, you know how they are kept in the same text and read generations by generations, because it's kind of a moral conduct that humanity has to follow. And it comes in different shapes and forms and different languages and different people and cultures, but it makes humanity go back to it decade after decade after decade after decade, and centuries after centuries after century. So I think that's what any written text does, that's my analogy of religion and my definition of religion. So I think in the same way, whatever Paulo Freire has written in his texts, and whatever Augusto Boal has talked about, and whatever other early practitioners have talked about, just going back to those texts, because they will become your framework to do any work in TO. So, like, you said that you want to work with climate, and they are not marginalized. Maybe they are not marginalized institutionally, but maybe they're marginalized individually, internally, ideologically. So marginalization of all kinds, that again, going back to the four I's: the interpersonal, internal, and the institutional, and the ideological. So going back to the four I's, if you really look at it in a holistic and zoomed out lens, you will find that working with climate change with anybody, or rather, I think the permutation combination of any group of participants and any issues is going to be revolutionary and a very, very interesting journey to take for them. So I think this is what my thought is. So I'll just um yeah, exactly. So I think just go back to the texts. Anybody who want to experiment, because I think that's exactly how I did whatever I did. I did not know anybody. I have not seen any other facilitators really function years over the years. So I didn't know anything. I just went back to the text and I started doing, whatever he was saying, whatever Freire was talking about, the problem posing model of education that should be there in the community. I implemented exactly that in Rankarma. The community should lead, so the local facilitators will be working with the adolescents. So, like, these tiny tiny things. So I think I did not see anybody else practicing anything else, but I just saw a problem and a group of participants, and we did the permutation and combination, and whatever was the best fit, we just started working with it. So go back to the text. They really help you frame, give a frame. They give a framework to your work. They give a framework to your idea of change. Like Eduardo Galeno said that change doesn't have to be one big change. Like tiny tiny people in tiny tiny parts of the country can keep making tiny tiny changes, and that is revolution. So just like, if it's climate change and some community, just do it. Just do it.
Thank you, Vandana. Yeah, going back to the four I's, if you're saying that people are not marginalized, returning to what marginalization means from the context of the four I's, and yeah, returning to the text in many ways can be helpful. Radha, you have your hand up.
Hi, thanks. Thanks, Akhila. Yeah. No, there is just too much to say. I think Maulikraj raised a lot of issues, and I think you also picked out a few really, really important questions. So I don't think it's possible to address everything, but I do want to begin with picking up something from what Vandana just said, which is that there are so many different kinds of marginalizations. I was going to say oppressions, right? And also so many different identities that we all carry, right? So I am upper caste, but I'm also a woman, and I'm also a senior citizen. And so in the CCDC team, we have people queer, people who are going through mental health issues. So there are different identities that we carry. That's one. And I think we as facilitators work from all these identities. And one of the important things that we recognize as we become more and more experienced is how not to separate the personal struggles from the learning as a TO facilitator, how rather to bring both into each other, because that is how you stay authentic as a facilitator, that's one. I do want to say that I have grappled with this notion of my own privileged location, but I've also found a way to just work with it. Because otherwise you just kind of freeze, right? I mean, you're of no use to anybody. So what my privilege has given me is access to TO training. right? I mean, I wouldn't be a TO facilitator if I hadn't been able to travel to the US and train. And even Jana Sanskriti's trainings are expensive, so it gives me access. Now, what I did with that privilege is I also brought Mark Weinblatt, with whom I trained and whose training I found extremely useful. But I wanted to see it work in the Indian context. When I trained in the US, it seemed really strange to me. The kind of issues that people were bringing up didn't seem real at all. So I wanted to see it work in India, and Mark obliged. I mean, he spent a whole month with us in 4 different cities, worked with very, very different communities, and I saw how TO can work. And that's really how my work with TO began. And a little later, when I came across David Diamond's Theatre for Living, that set off a few questions for me. And I knew it was important to engage with David's work. And instead of me traveling to Vancouver, I thought, if I can raise some money, let me bring David to India, because by then, CCDC had a really large group of jokers who had trained with us. And I thought we would all benefit from engaging with David's reasons for moving away from Theatre of the Oppressed, and whether that made sense to us. Now, that was a process of inquiry that I thought was extremely valuable. And I think an important critical moment in CCTC's history was when we decided that we wanted to stay with TO. We want to use the word oppression, precisely for the reason, some of the reason that Maulikraj was talking about. Caste is something that needs to be seen as oppression. And so that is one. So I just want to say that there are ways in which one works with one's privilege to do meaningful things. I also want to say, I think it was Liz who used this idea, but Augusto Boal says that the TO practitioner needs to be a difficultator, not a facilitator only, right? And I think that is something that I have found extremely useful in working with people with privilege, especially, but also with people whom we consider as supposedly not privileged, and that's something that I want to problematize. This idea that maybe, when we use the word community itself in India, we think they're marginalized communities. And the TO facilitator is not member of the community. So I think we need to engage with that, how we use the word community, and also the idea of representation. Who has the right to represent whom? I think it would be interesting and useful to look at representation as an act of imagination rather than as simply, I am a Dalit and therefore I can represent Dalits. I think that's too simplistic. To say that I have to be lower caste in order to represent lower caste issues. I find that problematic. So I think it's an act of imagination. And anyway, there's much more that we can say about it. And one of the things that we do at CCDC is we offer trainings. And we offer trainings. So far, we've been able to offer trainings in 3 different languages that are spoken in India, other than English. And I think that is one of the ways in which our trainings reach more people than the so-called English-educated urban middle class. So we are able to reach a much, much wider audience because we use these languages. And I think that's important. And I think it's important to engage with the enemy. I really feel that you need to stay where you are and engage with the enemy rather than, kind of distance yourself from. And I think the last thing I really want to say is there is so much work to do in India. There is so much work. There are like a million different contexts, that you can do this work in. And I think we should all do what we feel we can authentically do. Yeah.
I think Radha, just that last statement, and I'll just conclude with Maulik, like giving you the mic. I'll just say 2 things. You mentioned that TO can be something that you can want to expand across multiple communities, like how Liz and C, like how TONYC, as Liz said, and CCDC, as you said, are providing trainings to expand the movement, whereas and Maulikraj and Vandana's work is staying within a community and deepening the movement within the community. So I think there can be various avenues of engaging with this work where depth applies across both ways of engagement. Maulikraj, I'm going to give you the mic. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Akila. And thank you so much, Radha, for like responding from your practice and your philosophy. And yeah, I completely agree with you in a way that, as you said, that yeah, community is not just a marginalized community. Community is like the whole. In different way, we are like different community. We are part of different community. And you said about identities. Yeah, I completely agree with you that we carry different identities. But the major problem here is what I see, and I raise this in like very vocally, which is like also like I problematize Indian theater, problematize TO practices, political theater, and all kind of performance practices by performing and also doing scholarship and saying this out loud that upper caste people are the like oppressors, are the leaders, and that helps, and because of like my positionality allows me to do that. And as you also like said that it is not only like lower caste is the only people who are representing lower caste. I think that's the great thing. I do not want to like represent lower caste people, like or oppressed caste people every time. I just want to give that space to upper caste people, because as Baba Saheb Ambedkar also said that caste is not the issue of oppressed caste. Caste is the issue who has created the caste, and caste created by upper caste people. So I think it is like great to like upper caste people talk about caste and like be anti-caste. So my whole work is all about that, like to how to like make upper caste anti-caste. And because what is happening here, like, and thank you for saying out loud that you're coming from upper caste community, because like most of the people don't say that, and they just say that they are brown, they are women, they are different kind of like coming from India, they're coming from South India, they're coming from North India, they are coming from rural part of India. So they use different language, but they miss that they are coming from upper caste community. And I think because that access or that privilege they got, they missed to mention that whenever they write like their like website, or whenever they write project, they miss that point. And I think it is great if, like, we all can become anti-caste by showing our positionality and like by showing our privilege. Because like as I said, and I write in my bio that I'm Dalit, as I think that's great if you also like, and not you in like, I'm not responding to Radha, but you in general, like if you are coming from the oppressor community, mention that. So I think that also like giving you picture that who are leading and who are like heading everything. So I think that is like important, like showcasing your caste position is also allowing you to like one step forward to be anti-caste. And yeah, I think that is the main thing. And also like this like I also wanted to talk about the process. And as I said that I want to change the language of this whole, the idea of oppress and oppressor, because there are a lot of different kind of caste groups, and also it is like intersectionality within like gender, and like within the Dalit, like as I am Dalit man, I'm holding a lot of space. And so as I said in my talk also, that I want to give that space to Dalit women, and I want to give that space to Adivasi women. I think like upper caste people or the oppressors are missing that as well. They just want to hold that space from 5,000 years, and they just want to give that space to other person. So I think, or like, as it's like very like struggling to be like, and like vocalizing myself and saying out like so powerfully that I'm Dalit, and I'm doing theater, and I'm PhD practitioner and PhD student as well. It it, it it's like, because the caste question is very much like making inferior. Whenever like you go to somebody, they just ask you what caste you are, if you are upper caste, then it's great to say out loud that, hey, I'm Brahmin and I'm doing this and that. But if you are coming from lower caste, it's very difficult to say your caste at that time. So I think here right now, when I say I am Dalit, it 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 it's it gives like a lot of courage. And I think my lot of people also in my community, they don't say that they perform like Brahmin. They change their surname and they just say that, hi, I'm also upper caste. They change. If I speak like good Gujarati language, like when I conduct theater workshops in Gujarat, and if I speak good Gujarati language, like participant, like after like in tea, and like they just in after the workshop, they assume that I'm upper caste, and they say that, sir, are you also Brahmin? And they also want to connect themselves with me, that are you also Brahmin? They are showing their caste there as well. Or they ask that, sir, are you Jain? Shrimalis are Jain. So they ask like different kind of caste here, and they also put their caste location there. So I think, and that's why I say out loud that I'm Dalit. And that is also problematizing Indian theater, because it's the caste question inferior Dalits in many ways. So I think that's that's my motive for like practicing theater and also doing scholarship and talking this in today's Zoom as well.
If I
Thank
can
you.
say two quick things.
Yeah, I just want to know that we have about 5 to 8 more minutes left.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
just
Yeah.
I'm just going to hand it over to Vandana, and I know that your hand was up first, and then I'm going to go to Radha, and then we're going to conclude after that. But I just want to name what's happening, and I want us all to also observe it. The whole point of TU is to have dialogue, is to have difficult dialogues. And the whole point of having these spaces where we have people from different intersectionalities coming together and tolerating differences together was the reason why TU was created. So just notice in your own bodies and in the space where those differences are being lifted and what that's leading to. Okay, and we're going to go to Vandana, then Radha, and then we're going to conclude. But keep the dialogue going in the chat, guys. This is very exciting. Okay, Vandana, go ahead.
I think I just wanted to show resonance to what Maulikraj was saying. I think number one was um, when he said that uh, the problem of the caste is not only problem of the oppressed caste, it's also the problem of the oppressor caste. And I think it just took me back to what Boal said and Freire said, that oppression is not just the problem of the oppressed, it's also the problem of oppressor. Because I think even with the internal praxis, I've realized that whenever I am angry, or whenever I hate somebody, I think the hate isn't only harming them, it's harming me. That anger, that agitation is taking bits by bits of me. So I think that's what I've realized in my internal praxis as well as the external praxis. The idea of radical love, and love so radical that you, like, again, the oppression and the oppressor and their relationship, and how the oppression is also happening with them, they're doing internally. So again, going back to the four eyes and something like that. So like a lot of resonance there. And I think I had a very similar experience, Maulikraj. So I was in Rajasthan, in a very small, very small village. And you know this was back in 2018 or 2019. And I had like my pixie haircut, my hippie clothes, and my rucksack in a village in Rajasthan, and I'm a woman. And I have like this big nose piercing. And I think then I went there, and somebody asked me, a woman asked me, um, I asked for water. I think I was sitting at their home and I was playing with the child, and she asked to me, I asked for water. Can I have a glass of water? And she she turned and she came back and she said, what's your caste? Because she wanted to decide in which vessel is she going to, in which kind of glass she's going to give me the water in. So I think she asked me, what's your caste? And I said, no, I mean, why do you want to know? She said, okay, what's your surname? And I said, Asha. And she couldn't guess it. She couldn't guess my caste from my surname. So she was like, no, what's your father's name? And what is your jat? So I said, I mean, I'm not going to tell you. So she was like, why? Are you from lower caste? I was- And and this was just one incident. I recently got rejected from from being a tenant to a house in Champawat just because I did not reveal my caste. So they were like, okay, then we cannot give you because we have like devta and a lot of superstitious stuff. I mean, I don't know whether it's superstitious or not. Who am I to say? But yeah, I mean, so I've various instances where I've seen caste play a huge role in, what kind of power do you have in the society. So it's like in that intersectionality of your different identities, caste plays a huge role, gender plays a huge role. I come and region. I come from Bihar and my father was a farmer. So you can guess the struggles that I had to go through as a woman from Bihar to be able to sit here and talk about these things. So I mean, it's
Yeah,
interesting, but yeah,
and
just a lot of resonance. Yeah.
and also to name that when you could avoid not saying your caste, maybe people who, I mean, from like Maulikraj's story, not like people don't always have that option. Someone's caste.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, imagine the privilege that I have.
So Radha, we're going to come to you, and then we're going to conclude today's very invigorating discussion. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Radha.
I wanted to quickly thank Maulikraj for this suggestion that, put your identity also as the upper caste woman, announce it. And I mean, I'm still sitting with it. I think it's really making sense to me, but I still need to sort of think more about the implications of something like that. I got what you're saying, and I really want to thank you for that. But I also want to quickly talk about something else, which is the Bangalore Joker community, which is a community of jokers who have trained with us. Is a community that comes from all over India, from very, very different demographics. And there are also people from abroad in our trainings. And this community has completely funded our National Theatre of the Oppressed conference that's happening next month. The entire conference is being funded by donations from this community. It's something that I feel extremely happy to kind of announce. And from, amounts like 501 rupees, along with that donation came a message that said, I've got so much from TO. It's changed my life. But this is all that I can give now. To like a lakh of rupees from somebody that is able to give me that kind of money. So this community is, and I just wanted to say that the word about our trainings and the people that come to our trainings, it's all entirely by word of mouth. We don't write grants, we don't get funding from, large organizations. We've sort of managed to survive for the last 13 years on just people coming to our trainings and people inviting us to work in their communities. So we have worked in many different communities, and our trainings have therefore gone into different communities simply because people talk about it. And this is something that I think we don't often recognize the value of and the importance of, because something that I hear, so there are people who come to our trainings who are then taking the training to, say, corporate spaces, doing coaching, life coaching, and all kinds of things, right? I mean, I'm not a gatekeeper though, right? So the training goes to many, many different kinds of spaces. But what I just described, people coming to this conference, which is actually a conference of inquiry, right? The theme of the conference is Theatre of the Oppressed for Our Times. So we are actually looking closely at our practice and saying, how is TO relevant to us? something that came to us from far away, something that was created in a very specific political context. How does it make sense in India today? And that's the conference, that's the inquiry. And we've got registrations, again, from all over India, from, very, very different kinds of people.
Yeah.
I
And
just wanted to share that with you. Yeah.
and maybe that's a good step to conclude on, is that if people want to experience more of this work, the CCDC conference is happening next week. I have shared the link in the chat. And to always make sure that we're like, just to kind of emphasize the tension that we saw today, and also that we're also experiencing that there are people who are, for example, like I said, doing these trainings and getting community together to spread the work. And there's also the importance of staying with the community that you identify, taking the same risks as those spaces and deepening your roots with those, with that particular community. And I put community in quotations. The importance of radical love and community organizing, even when there's differences. So how do you continue to have love and dialogue and community mobilization, even when there is deep political rupture and historical wounds that we may not have looked at? So thank you all so much for coming to our meeting today. I hope we have more of these discussions and more such spaces of love and tension. Thank you all, and we can end the recording at this part. Thank you all.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Akila. Thank you,
you.
everyone.